And Dee tonight at the live desk here, brand new video just in. This is a look at those strikes unfolding tonight. This in Tehran near that city's airport there. The start of the war, according to the U.S. Central Command, since the start, U.S. forces have now hit more than 3,000 targets across Iran. This as President Trump today demanding, quote, unconditional surrender. New video also just in here from IDF showing 50 Israeli fighter jets striking and dismantling the Ayatollah's underground military bunker 1 week ago. That bunker was located beneath the Iranian regime's leadership compound in Tehran. Now, there are also new reports tonight that Russia has provided Iran with intelligence that could help them strike American warships or other assets across the region. Pete Hegseth addressing that tonight during an interview with 60 Minutes.
We have the best intelligence in the world. We're aware of who's talking to who, why they're talking to him, how accurate that information might be.
Does this put U.S. personnel in any more danger than they otherwise would be?
Well,
the Russian involvement.
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that. We mitigate it as we need to.
And since the start of the war 1 week ago, the State Department now reporting nearly 24,000 Americans have now safely made it back to the U.S. from the Middle East, about half of those receiving direct assistance through the State Department. They are running a task force right now working 24/7 to bring Americans home.
And a week since Operation Epic Fury began, let's take a look at the major targets in Iran that the U.S. and Israel have taken out. 25 to 30 Navy vessels have been damaged or destroyed, along with Iranian naval facilities. This has weakened Iran's ability to deploy ships into the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf. Multiple radar and ground-based defense systems have been hit across western and southern Iran, allowing Israel and the U.S. to operate far more freely in Iranian airspace. Several missile bases and launch sites have been hit, reducing Iran's ability to conduct sustained missile attacks against Israel. Air Force bases have also been targeted, damaging several runways, hangars, drones, and aircraft, disrupting Iran's regional command structure and weapons flow. And lastly, drone factories and storage sites have been hit, limiting Iran's ability to launch long-range drone strikes. A new report suggests it was the U.S. that launched the strike that hit a girls' elementary school in southern Iran at the end of February that killed at least 175 people, many of them children. Neither the U.S. nor Israel have taken responsibility for the strike, the deadliest known single attack so far in the conflict. But a New York Times analysis suggests it was likely a U.S. precision strike that happened at the same time as an attack on an adjacent naval base operated by the IRGC. The Pentagon says the incident is under investigation. The Trump administration's decision to strike Iran is dividing lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Virginia Representative Rob Wittman, a House Armed Services Committee member, joining us to discuss. And obviously, Congressman, it's great to have you here on the National News Desk. Thank you for your time. You have been briefed by the Secretary of State, Secretary of War, other cabinet officials on this rapidly developing situation. What is your assessment thus far?
Sure. My assessment is they made significant progress in degrading Iran's ability to perpetrate harm across the region. And their focus is to take out their conventional capability, that is their missile systems, their weapon systems that they can engage others. The other is taking away their capacity to produce nuclear weapons. They significantly degraded that, so they are actually a little bit ahead of schedule in doing the things that are in their initial objectives to take away the ability for Iran to not only threaten its neighbors, but to also expand what has been seen in the region as an incredibly aggressive growth of their military, and again, for the purposes of destabilizing the region.
And a lot of questions about the U.S.'s involvement, obviously, and from a defense standpoint, a weaponry standpoint. Are you concerned about a prolonged conflict in the region?
Well, listen, I think the objectives of this military operation are going to be about, achieving these objectives quickly. They're ahead of schedule to be able to do that. I think the President, the Secretary of Defense, and others are very focused on achieving those objectives and not having this turn into a long-range conflict. I think, too, with them, talking about what are we going to do to make sure that we have a transition to a more stable government there is also going to be key. I know that their military objectives are matching the long-term objectives for the country from a standpoint of governance. How do you make sure not only do you stabilize the country, but how do you make sure you have proper governance so this doesn't happen again?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask, President Trump said that he wants to be involved in picking Iran's next leader. And once there, as you take a look on your screen, is acceptable leadership in place, his words, to actually help rebuild. Your thoughts on that front, and what could that process look like for the U.S., Congressman?
Sure. Well, listen, I think it needs to be determined by the Iranian people. I mean, they've been oppressed now for 47 years under this Islamic regime there in Iran, this theocracy that's been run by clerics. I think what we see right now is you want to take out that extreme element about how the government's been run there. Listen, the Iranian people know what's going to be best for their country. I think that this needs to be organic. You need to have people that are willing to take on these leadership positions from the Iranian population there in the country, not from the clerics, not from the extremists, but from folks that are willing to take these leadership roles. And I think that provides the longest term certainty for the country and the longest term stability that the country needs in order to make sure it gets back on a firm footing and can rebuild an economy and can assure that the Iranian people are not going to be terrorized like they have been over the last 47 years.
Before I let you go, bringing it back here at home, concerns about sleeper cells in the U.S. Based on your conversations with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, are we any closer to getting DHS up and fully running?
Well, it should be running right now. Unfortunately, the most recent vote failed. I think that it's critical for this nation to properly fund DHS. Yes, there is a risk of sleeper cells. I think if you look through the years when we had the open border and the people that came across unchecked, I think the likelihood that there is an element here in the country of people that would want to do U.S. citizens harm. It's unfortunate, but I think it's a reality. I think you have to plan for that. You have to plan for the worst and make sure that you have the ability to counter that. We do not need at this point to have funding interruptions with the Department of Homeland Security. Regardless of the other issues here, listen, we can have the debates about what Homeland Security should do, but let's make sure we properly fund it. There's nothing worse than having TSA agents, our Coast Guard's men and women, our DHS personnel, all not being paid. It's unacceptable.
We'll have to leave it there. Congressman Bob Whitman, thank you for joining us tonight on the National News Desk. Appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thanks, DD.
Meanwhile, troops from New England are now headed to the Middle East.
The Vermont Air National Guard is heading over, and we wonder about others close at home, as NBC 10's Nicole Mader reports.
Whether more reserve troops from New England deploy will likely depend on how the situation unfolds in the coming days and weeks. While other bases in New England may not be on standby right now, if the operational needs of the mission change in the region, they could be called up.
War raging in the Middle East, the United States conducting coordinated military strikes against Iran, including aerial and missile attacks alongside Israeli forces. Vermont's 158th Fighter Wing, which operates F-35 stealth fighter jets, fits the mission. Will more New England Reserve troops be deployed?
If you're flying an aircraft that is not going to be utilized in this particular theater of operations, you're not going to deploy. If you are operating weapon platforms that are being used in this theater, then you might be deployed.
Ken Gray from the University of New Haven says reserve bases across New England are watching the situation carefully.
Sure that is going through the mind of all the military members and their family members too.
Southern New England has 3 military installations. Quonset Point in Rhode Island, home to the 143rd Airlift Wing, which flies C-130 cargo aircrafts that transport troops and supplies. Westover Air Reserve Base in Massachusetts operates C-5 heavy airlifters capable of moving large amounts of equipment overseas. And Joint Base Cape Cod, which primarily serves as a training and mobilization site. They're not on standby right now, but if the situation in the region changes...
Whether they have to reach down to the National Guard level of New England here is yet to be seen.
What would be the reason to send cargo planes over into the Middle East?
Logistics, moving supplies into the area.
As for boots on the ground in Iran, President Trump says he isn't ruling it out.
Would those be National Guard reservesmen who are in the States, potentially people in New England who might be activated and then sent over into the region?
Potentially, yes. It could be National Guard units. It could be regular Army units.
Ken said that he isn't surprised that the Defense Department and the president haven't been more forthcoming with the war plan because they don't want to reveal their game plan to the enemy. In the studio, Nicole Mader, NBC 10 News.